I use my writing journals for goal setting, inspiration, writing ideas, clarity, so many different things that have been important to me in my writing journey. This was going to be a simple flip through, but I also realised that the pages tell the story of my burnout without me realising I had it at the time. I'm recording this on an extremely hot day here in England, and therefore it's a perfect time to do a notebook video because it means I don't have to look at the camera. You just have to look at my notebooks, and if you saw my face right now, I am a hot mess. I'm in my office, which is up the stairs off the kitchen, one of the hottest rooms in the house. I can't have my fan going because it's so noisy. And that is the noise of my dog having a drink just down the stairs in the kitchen. So here we are, a little bit rough and ready, but we're here and I'm recording this video all about my notebooks and how I use my notebooks for goal setting, inspiration, ideas, clarity, and what I found over these two notebooks is that you can track a little bit of my burnout, which happened from the end of last year and really hit me in January. So these two notebooks are the ones that I've used since October 2022. They aren't as full as previous notebooks have been, and you can see some of my previous notebooks are over here. They have a lot of writing in them, and I would fill pages and pages and pages with ideas and snippets of essays and just many thoughts that then developed into something that I could use within my writing. And now my other dog's having a drink. But these two journals I've used not as full on, I think, as these ones over here, but I can see that I am putting a lot of pressure on myself, especially in this one, which is the kind of lead up to the actual burnout crash that I had in kind of end of December, January time. There's a lot of angst as well, and I'm not going to apologise for that because it's just what goes on in our heads, and I think you have to get it out and down into a notebook. And who knows, if I hadn't done that, then my burnout might have lasted a lot longer than what it did. So my first journal that I started in October 2022 is a perfectly penned journal. It's got some coffee rings there on the front cover. I've got lots of autumnal washi tape and stickers in here. I've also highlighted the pages that I'm happy to share with you with these stickers, because I'm not going to share every single page. There's a lot of personal stuff in there that I don't particularly want all over the internet, but I'm going to be as open as I possibly can be. So it starts with my birthday week. I'm just going to lower you down. What I aim to do in this video within my notebook is to share the pages where I've written down things that have inspired me, where I've written down ideas that have then led to YouTube videos or pieces that I've written on Substack, or where I've gained clarity, or the kind of angst and clarity that I've gained has then directly led towards my goal setting for my planning, for my writing planning and everything like that. I use my journal in all sorts of ways. So this is just a traditional list, a brainstorming list that I used way back in October last year of YouTube ideas that I could do. And then I also did some Vlogmas ideas as well. And I did start Vlogmas last year and then I crashed and burned. So it didn't last very long. I use it sometimes as a kind of diary. So I'm saying here that I've just finished the business section of my non-fiction book proposal. I plan things out here, and this is me planning everything that I wanted to do on my Substack and within the Confident Creative Club, which I had at the time. And when I actually looked at this, with everything that I've learned since then, it actually made my tummy flip. And I thought, Helen, how on earth did you do all this? Or how on earth did you imagine you could do all of this? So that made me quite happy, because it meant that I'm aware that I've gained knowledge about myself over the past year. And again, I've got another list here of all the items that I pulled from my previous notebook. And this is something that I traditionally tend to do. When I start a new notebook, I go through the old one and pull out all the ideas from there. And those ideas I then use for inspiration or for ideas for content on YouTube or on my Substack, or for my Medium as well. Or just as a reminder, it might be a good quote or something like that. So I make a list and remind myself of everything that I said that was useful in my previous notebook. Now here was effectively, I just emptied my head. It says, what's on my mind? And I literally emptied it of everything that I wanted to do, everything that I was thinking about. I've got a full head here. You're struggling with overwhelm. Yet instead of stepping back, I'm trying to add more to my plate. And here I've notice the word exhaustion that I've used just here. And this is probably the first inkling that burnout is just around the corner. But on the whole, this is a page all about goal setting and gaining clarity, as I'm trying to empty my head of everything that's inside it. And I really like these sessions. I do this quite a lot. What's going on in your head? And I did this on my phone when I was on holiday. I didn't have a notebook to hand, and I just emptied my head of worries that I had at the time. I mean, why I'd be on holiday and just worrying, I don't know. That then led to a Medium article all about worrying. Again, I'm writing about YouTube here, and I'm gaining clarity over it. I've had a really up and down relationship with YouTube. I started with great fanfare and excitement and saying I'm going to do 2 videos a week or 1 video a week or whatever it is. And then I get obsessed with the stats and I get obsessed with the numbers, that I'm not growing, that other people are doing so much better than me. Creates a lot of angst. I also second guess what I want to film as well. So this time it does feel different how I'm doing things. I'm planning things out ahead of time. I've said I will upload every Sunday at 5 o'clock, and I know that feels quite rigid. It feels like I've got a deadline that I can work towards, rather than just saying, oh, I'll post it sometime over the weekend. And it helps. And here I've put film what I want to film, not what I think is expected of me. And then here I was talking about my Substack, and all of this angst kind of led to a bit of a breakthrough there, because I was worrying about, oh, I'm just writing about myself all the time. Why do people want to hear about that? And then I realized that I was sharing my experiences through personal essays, and this is all I can do, because I might be that little bit further ahead than somebody else just starting their journey, and it's helpful to share what I'm finding out. This is some notes from my non-fiction book proposal. This is a video idea about The Way of the Fearless Writer by Beth Kempton. I'm writing down ideas here. Then I'm asking myself questions. Why do I keep comparing myself? And I've written here, because what I did, I went through my notebooks before I filmed it and made some notes on these pink post-its. And then I've said, all this internal angst helps with clarity in the long run. So I might feel like I'm whining to myself as I'm writing it, but my goodness, it really does help. And normally nobody sees what's inside your notebook, so it doesn't matter if you feel that you're being whiny or whatever. Just empty your head. You are allowed to have these thoughts. They are perfectly normal. Then I've got a double page spread here, notes on creative comparison, which probably led from this angst. And then I thought, oh, I could do something with it. And then obviously I left it blank. There's a lot more blank pages than usual in this notebook, and I think this is another sign of my impending burnout. It's like I start something and then I run out of oomph and I can't finish it. But I think over the page, then I do start some notes on creative comparison, and I'm sure this probably made it into an essay. I'm not 100%. If it did, I'll add it to the description box below. Example of comparison here. I was scrolling through Instagram stories when a writer asked a question of her audience. Split-second thought in my head, oh, maybe I should do that. Maybe if I did, I'd be more successful. You are so crap at building an online brand, especially compared to her. How hard am I on myself? All this baggage in a split-second fleeting thought. It made my tummy flip and I felt bad, like a failure in comparison. Why can't you be more like her? I bet she doesn't waste time comparing herself to others. I bet she does. I can't even remember who I was talking about, but I know everybody compares. But this is the sort of thing that goes on in my head, and I try and make note of these things because I think it's important in order to grow and to get past these mindset issues that may be holding us back. So now we're on the 5th of December. I haven't actually written that much since the 10th of October. I would normally have written a lot more. Normally, notebooks like this take me about 3 months to fill, if not less than that. That is 2 months worth, and I'm not even halfway through. I've only done about 100 pages, and some of them were blank. So I'm not as prolific with my journaling as I normally am. And again, this tells me something about myself at that period in time. Here I've got 5 non-fiction books to help you stop being scared of writing, and that turned into a video. Same here, this is all a continuation of that. So 10th of December 2022. I've blocked some of the stuff out because it was too personal, but I wanted to share this page because this is when I had my big realization about the club, my membership club that I was running over the course of nearly 2 years in 22 and 21. It just drained me, just running the club all on my own, creating courses, creating masterclasses, holding live writing sessions twice a day for 4 days a week. I was just completely and utterly drained, and it was emotional burnout, I think, is what I had, rather than actual working too hard. I don't think what I do is necessarily hard work. I don't think I do particularly lots of work, but in this instance it was just emotional because I had no professional support for myself. Anyway, so this is where I noted it. I can't remember this time, so I'm glad that I made a note about it in my journal, and I just said I feel like I no longer want to run the club, but maybe I'm just tired and ready for a Christmas break. And here I've put, I feel so low, I couldn't even get excited earlier in a bookshop. I mean, I had to be quite low for that to happen. Yeah, it was a sad time, a bad time for me. And yet I continued to have ideas and write them down. And here I've put, I'd like to read, analyse and annotate non-fiction, then write about it for Substack in detail and talk about it on my YouTube. That idea came from one 4-line paragraph, and that has actually become something that is going to become quite central to my Substack and my YouTube. I've now created the non-fiction book club. I have done annotating videos on YouTube. I think, did I do one on Austin Kleon, or was I in full burnout at the time? But I know I actually wrote 2 essays about Austin Kleon's Show Your Work, and that all stemmed from those 4 lines that came from all this kind of angst about the club. And then I was thinking about, well, what is it that I actually want to do? And that went to that. I didn't read back on that. I didn't remember that. But obviously somewhere at the back of my mind, that stuck, because I went ahead and I did it, and I created all of that over the course of this year. And that's why these writing journals are so magical. You can just empty your head and you don't need to remember it. Something just happens, and it all sort of meshes together when you empty everything out of your head. It meshes together and it creates links, and these threads all link to different ideas, and then suddenly you come up with something and you think, oh, where's that idea come from? And you don't realise until you read back through the pages of your notebook and you think, yep, that's where it's come from. All that angst, all that trying to gain clarity, all writing down those quotes of inspiration and ideas from other YouTubers and things along those lines, it has all gelled together and come up with a way that I want to go forward with my writing career. I don't think I actually did anything with this. I can't remember if I did or not. Basically, this was the end of 2022, and I was obviously affected by people planning for 2023 on the internet. They were writing about it, they were having videos about it and stuff. And I think it was all getting too much for me. And I'm basically saying, why don't you reflect on everything you've achieved before you start thinking about what comes next? Instead of being like on that hamster treadmill of constantly wanting to do better, constantly wanting to do more. That, I think, is where that was coming from. And actually, interestingly, Emma Gannon in The Success Myth, which I'm reading for this September book of the month on my Substack, The Red Fern, she has written something quite similar about in her productivity section. So I'm going to try and remember, I'm mentioning this now so I can make a note of it when I come to edit this. I'm mentioning this now to try and pull those 2 threads together, and maybe that could be something that my essay is about when I pull out strands from The Success Myth. It might not be, but it's definitely a link that I have put together through going through my old notebook. 31st December. Normally on the 31st of December, I'm raring to go for the year ahead with my writing, but here I'm saying I woke up this morning feeling a little anxious, a little tense, and I do tend to under-exaggerate on these things, so that probably meant I felt very tense, very anxious. We are about to start a new year and I don't feel ready. So again, burnout is definitely kicking in here. My thoughts were all scattered as well. And I even did a picture of how it felt in my head at the time. I've put dog there as well because we took her to the vets and they found a lump, and of course you think it's going to be something quite dreadful. Turned out she just had an infection. But in that week from going back the following week to check if the antibiotics had done the job, that was my head. I've written myself a to-do list. Here I am, I'm in full-blown burnout by now, and I've just written here, as I've reread it this morning, why are you still going, Helen? Why haven't you stopped? Honestly, we live and we learn. Here I've made some notes about Write It All Down by Kathy Rensenbrink. By Kathy Rensenbrink. Yes, I gained a lot of inspiration from her, so I made notes there, and we've got it all here as well. Write It All Down. Yes, I created a Substack essay about this. I must have done. I can't remember, but I must have done because I've written Substack posts. Again, if I have, I will acknowledge that in the description box below, and you can see what all these scribbles turned into as the final result. Lessons learned from 2022, and I made a list of everything I'd achieved, because this is probably following on from my earlier angst-ridden pages where I said, why can't you just reflect on what you've done that year? And I probably did that. The good, the bad. This is where I'm talking about it on my podcast. I think maybe I didn't write about it. Maybe I created a podcast about my reflections of 2022. Maybe that's what that is all about. Again, if I have, I will link that in the description box below. So that is pretty much that journal. It then kind of petered out a lot, and I don't normally leave so many blank pages at the end, because then I wanted to start this notebook. And this is a notebook from a shop in London called Choosing Keeping. Now, I do love this notebook, but not as much as I love this notebook. I know this notebook is probably more attractive, and it's got the sprayed edges. But I like to make my own sprayed edges using washi tape. Which I did until I didn't, because I stopped using my journal for relaxation. I think I was just scribbling away, desperate, trying to figure out why I wasn't feeling so good. So yes, I do prefer these notebooks, or there's another one that I'm going to open up next, which is very similar to this one. I like to have the elastic strap. I like to have the bookmark. Normally, I have a pen holder, but I took it out on that one. I think I took it out of this one, thinking I could maybe stick it into this one, but it didn't work. So yes, normally I like to have a pen holder. And I also like to have page numbers on the bottom. So in this one, see, you've got page numbers at the bottom, which I find really, really helpful. Oh God. Honestly, I am so hot. I cannot tell you how hot I am. I can feel, I'm turning into a sweaty mess just sitting here, which you really wanted to know that, didn't you? So then, but how satisfying is that when it creaks, when it opens? I love that. So this is my new notebook for this year. I can't remember what date I started this one. It may have been around May, it may have been earlier than that. Normally I write the date at the beginning, and I put a little sticker or something so you can tell what season it is I've opened the notebook on, or I do a drawing. In this case, I just put a quote: you don't have to be the best at something to succeed, you just have to be the one who shows up and has a go. And that is by a writer called Elise Downing. That is such good advice, such good advice. So here we are. I often create these things, bits of torn paper, for Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, and instead of just throwing them away, I often just stick them into my journal. It's a kind of memento thing. Now this starts, I remember writing this, I was kneeling by the side of my bed. I thought I'd found my perfect life, one that I didn't need to take a holiday from. I was happy in a routine, productive. Admittedly, I was ready to wind down for Christmas. And I had no idea that my perfect creative working life was about to explode in my face. It came out of nowhere. So because this one has sprayed edges, I didn't like to use the washi tape to mark pages. I like that used, battered, lived in notebook, and that's why I love using the washi tape. I also like to use the washi tape because it's soothing, just laying it out, making sure it's flat, and then folding it over and putting it on the other side. I find that so incredibly soothing, and I felt I couldn't do it in this one, which is ridiculous that a sprayed edge is dictating whether or not I can use washi tape in my notebook. But there you go. It's a gorgeous notebook and I love it. Also, it doesn't fit in my handbag, whereas this one, slightly smaller. Just that slight little inch smaller. It fits in my bag. So Monday the 1st of May, I'm annotating Share Your Work by Austin Kleon, and I feel myself becoming a little bit excited, a little bit emotional as I read his words. So we've had January, February, March, April, and I can finally, on the 1st of May, I'm starting to feel a glimmer of excitement again for my writing. And that is because reading Austin Kleon's Share Your Work. I went on to write a few essays about Austin Kleon on my Substack. Those two essays were probably two, and another one that I wrote at that time, are two of the most read essays and liked essays and commented on essays that I've ever produced on Substack. And I think it's because I'd turned a corner, and you could probably sense that in my writing. Plus I was writing about Austin Kleon, who is an absolute genius when it comes to distilling lots of ideas into a easily readable format about creativity and writing. Then this is me. Well, first of all, I feel stuck. Well, that didn't last long, did it? So 1st of May, feeling great. 16th of May, feeling stuck. I think what was happening to me, I was comparing myself to others because my burnout just made me lose a lot of confidence. So the previous year, my confidence, and earlier in 2022, my confidence was probably sky high, the highest it's ever been with my writing and creativity. And then the burnout hit, and I feel like I went back so many places in terms of my creative confidence. Then I made some notes from the unpublished podcast, which is by Amy McNee and her husband James, I want to say. Apologies if I've got that wrong. Yes, it is James. I've written his name down there. So I just made notes on some of the things. This was a really good podcast episode from April the 17th, 2023. Creatives don't always have to be visible. And I think when I was listening to that as I was driving along in my car, I could link lots of what they said to aspects of Share Your Work by Austin Kleon. Again, I love it when these things come together and you create links and threads, and you can therefore write about it in a whole new way because you've created something new from somebody else's previous work. Again, I'm putting here, I'm rethinking how I use my social media, inspired by Austin Kleon. That has probably led through to how I'm using social media to it now, which is the something of September, maybe the 9th or something like that. I had an email conversation with my friend Mel, and she sent me some questions to journal upon. How do you define success? And Mel, if you're watching this, you were asking me to define success, and then I went ahead and bought Emma Gannon's book about the success myth many months later. So you were ahead ahead of it all. You got me thinking about it, which therefore has helped me while reading Emma's book. So you probably didn't know that, but there you go. This is some notes that on a podcast that I was going to do with Claire, all about our Substack story. Finding a creative path that suits you, noise online and what we should be doing, e.g. we should go live. This is just me making notes. I don't even recall anything about that, but I know I write about the shoulds later on this year, so maybe it stemmed from that. Making notes from my workbook called Journaling Your Goals, which I sell on my website. These are the chapters that are in it. I think I was writing this down for the marketing blurb that I was putting on my website. And then I've got Journaling for Writers Masterclass as well, which is a live session that I did that I've now turned into a evergreen masterclass that you can also buy on my website. This is me making notes for a podcast I did with Trona Freeman. I have to say, in this notebook, it's more practical. It's more me planning ahead for work that I'm going to be doing, rather than me delving into my mindset or thinking about stuff, for want of a better word. I think this is because I couldn't think about stuff. I could only focus on the task ahead of me, and that was the podcast with Trona. Then I wrote about the pressure to enjoy summer. I've got podcast notes here. I think this was my Substack story with Claire. And then here I've made some notes about Gary Barlow. I was watching a YouTube podcast with him that really inspired me. And he said, I don't believe someone who doubts themselves can create wholeheartedly. It just doesn't work without that belief. That stood out to me, and I thought, I have to write about this. So I made a note in my writing journal, and I've not yet written about that, but I will do. That is going to be something that I will come back to at a later date. I watched the Wham documentary. I think that was on Netflix. Made a few notes. What I've learned from burnout? Nothing. Medium ideas that won't go on my Substack. That's when I was thinking about coming back to Medium. I've come back to Medium now, but I've not fully embraced it as yet. I've written a script here about returning to my writing desk after a break. That was a YouTube video where I've been. This became a YouTube video when I was coming back. Productivity video, again, YouTube video, all notes. I do like to have notes. I like to write the scripts in here because when I look back, I can recall where I was. So even though it's a script, I'm still writing about what was happening to me at that time. I'm writing about overwhelm here. I've just said I want to write a short piece about overwhelm after a holiday because I was feeling overwhelmed. I don't think I actually did that. I then had my breakthrough, which is all about how I felt my writing wasn't enough. I've written about this at length on my Substack. I mentioned it in my last productivity video a couple of weeks ago, so I won't talk about it in more detail than that, but this is where I had the breakthrough in my notebook. I sent the email, at the time it was 1 o'clock in the morning, so I literally got on my phone and sent some emails to myself, but then I wrote about it in longer detail in my notebook the following day. This is inspiration from an Alexis Eldridge video. She produced a video all about starting on YouTube and what she's learned, and I found that really quite inspiring for somebody who's coming back after a break. Okay, I've taken my camera off the tripod because it stopped working, and I had a massive panic because I'd just been rambling for 30 minutes and I thought I'd lost everything. And I touched my camera and it's red hot, because it is red hot. So I'm going to wrap this video up now, but before I do, I just wanted to share. I've wanted to write about this documentary for many months since it first came out, but I just didn't have the energy, and I've finally done it. So I'm very proud of myself for not giving up on it and for writing it. I mean, ideally, next time I would like to write things as soon as it happens, so it has that kind of timeliness to it, but I didn't give up on it, and all these notes and my thoughts are probably the ones in red pen, and the others are quotes from the documentary, all turned into an essay. So I'm going to leave it there because I'm hot, as I've already said, and my camera keeps packing in. It says the storage is also full as well, so I'm really against it here. But this is my last 2 writing notebooks from October to the present day, and how they have helped me with goal setting, how they've inspired me, how they've helped me create ideas, how they've given me clarity and allowed me to just to spill out all my angst, and also in a small way to document my burnout journey, even if I didn't realise it at the time. Thank you for watching. Bye.